To ask me anything about politics. My name is Jarrett Berenstein, and I'm here to answer all your questions about politics, be they simple or complicated. Everybody is welcome here, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, or something on the outskirts. I am not here to judge or roast or debate or harass. I am just here to answer all of your good faith questions about politics, be they simple or complicated, be they left wing or right wing. There's no such thing as a dumb question, so if there's something you've always wanted to know about politics, but you were afraid to ask because you were worried it would make you look uninformed or unintelligent, well, don't worry. You can ask that question here. Nobody's going to judge you or roast you for not knowing things. I do not believe in making fun of people for trying to learn new things, so you can ask your questions here, and I'm not going to fight you. All right, Jetian says, what do you think of NS, National Syndicalist? I don't know what National Syndicalist is. Jut, sorry about that. But welcome. Welcome to Ask Me Anything About Politics. My name is Jarrett, and I'm here to answer your questions about politics, be they simple or complicated. Everybody is welcome here, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, or something on the outskirts. It is just good faith answers to good faith questions here, so you don't got to worry about getting debated. I know that there's a big debate culture out there. What is up, Willie? Great to see you again. I know there's a big debate culture out there where there's a lot of very popular shows where Democrats and Republicans will debate each other and they'll yell at each other and they'll try to prove that they're smarter than the other person, trying to own the other person. That is not what we do here. This is just good faith answers to all of your good faith questions. So if you are somebody who disagrees with me politically and you have a question about my politics or you want to get into the substance, then throw your question in the chat and we will get to answering it. The Select Shop says House of Senate they want to separate Jews and American citizen question mark. As far as I know, that is not something that they are trying to do. Also, there's no House of the Senate. There's the House and the Senate. There's two bodies to Congress. So like the three branches of the American government are the White House, the legislative, and the judiciary. The legislative is Congress, and that's broken up into two parts, which is the House and the Senate. So there's no House of the Senate. It's just the Senate or the House. All right. The Practical Extremist says one state or two states. Are you talking about Israel Palestine? I assume that a two-state solution is probably better. But in order for that to happen, Israel would have to, recognize Palestine as its own sovereign region and respect to the sovereignty of the Palestinian people. All right, Lexus says, I was debating a Cappy, and he said that the abolishment of means of production results in slavery. So I don't know what a Cappy is, and I don't know if abolishing the means of production is what anybody is trying to achieve. I think what people are trying to get is for the working class to seize the means of production. All right, Garbage Emoji says, why do you think Trump is the best ever? I don't. I think he's the worst ever. The Practical Extremist says, what about the idea of giving everyone a vote and citizenship? Are you talking about Israel? I've got no idea what their citizenship and voting laws are like. Hun Politician says, do you like center-left ideologies? They're fine. I'm much more of a far-left person, but I believe in the Democratic Party being a big tent, so I welcome and accept people that are further to the left and further to the right from me. Lexus says, capitalist and private ownership, my bad, my bad. Yeah, so Cappy must be capitalist then. If you abolish capitalism and private ownership, then the result is slavery. Seems like kind of a bank shot to me. And I also think it's a little aggressive to say that no human is allowed to start their own business. So I think, yeah, there's no need, I think, to debate the extremist positions of communism or socialism or anything like that, because it's not going to happen anytime, soon, barring any sort of like massive military coup or anything like that, which, I think it's very unlikely in Western civilizations. Okay, user a bunch of numbers says, do you realize MAGA are not representative of conservative values? I mean, but people who describe themselves as conservative vote for Republicans who then do the bidding of the MAGA movement. User a whole bunch of numbers. Okay, let's see here. Gestapo Bro says, Stein, huh? Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and block you right now, Gestapo Bro. Don't really have a lot of faith in you being here in good faith. Goyam says, EU is turning into a dictatorship. I doubt that. Emmett says, would you think about Andy Burnham likely becoming British PM? I mean, I prefer left-wing parties, so I think that if he replaces Keir Starmer and Labour is still in charge of the UK government, I think that's probably the move. I hear the Greens are doing really well over there as well, and I don't hate that. Okay, Bob says, I'd say what political ideology do you politically support? Progressive Democrats. Let's see here. Sanks said, do you like Harry Kane? I don't know who Harry Kane is. Harley M says, do you believe in communism? I mean, I think workers under the means of production is pretty dope. Okay, let's see here. Goyam says, glory to Restore Britain. No, Restore Britain is a terrible political movement that blames immigrants for the problems that were caused by the billionaire class. User a whole bunch of numbers says, so you trust the government to hold complete control over the people? No, I don't. User a bunch of numbers. Don't know what I said that made you think that. Folk says Ukraine, Russia. I mean, I'm for the citizens of both of those countries, but if you're asking me to judge the leadership of those countries, then Ukraine, their leadership is not trying to annex Russia. Russia is trying to annex Ukraine. So I'm on the side of Ukraine in that fight. User a bunch of numbers says that's left. So you think that being a progressive Democrat means that I want the government to hold complete control over the people? I don't. That's not my position at all. I am Nopi says, any thoughts on the political dynasty? I mean, you'll have to be more specific, I guess. Who is the political dynasty? Pig Swineson says, why liberals are so stupid and conservative alphas are so smart? I do not believe that is accurate, Pig Swineson. I think that there are smart and dumb people on both sides of the political spectrum. I will say that statistically, if you did not graduate college or high school, you are more likely to be conservative. I don't think that means that conservative people are less intelligent, but I think that you do learn things, certain types of things when you get an education that maybe makes it easier for you to discern actual information from misinformation. Sonny Brooks says, bro, what the fuck? The Empire State Climbers just jumped off. I don't know what that is. Let's see here. Sumex Clip says, in Italy, we are cooked. My Italian brothers and sisters, as a half Italian man, please hear my call. Abbondanza. It is never over. You can be better. You're not cooked. Maybe you're medium well, but you can have a better life and a better government if you do the work. Abbondanza. What's the word I was looking for? Andiamo, do the work. Okay, Chicken Syrup says, Trump, how big? Huge? I mean, by all reporting, it's pretty tiny and weird shaped, like a mushroom, is what Stormy Daniels said. Sonny Brooks says, bro, have you not seen the Empire State Building Climbers? No, I have not. Terry Dorscato says, what's the origin of the word politics? I'm sure it goes back to Latin. The Fixer Mike says, the bell curve of IQ amongst conservatives is shaped such that they don't know how to read graph. I don't believe in making fun of conservative voters, the Fixer Mike, so please do not take my little giggle there as any sort of endorsement. All right, Tommy Busini says, bro, I'm actually Italian. What the fuck are you saying? I'm saying that other dude said that Italians were cooked, and I said, you're not cooked. I mean, maybe things aren't where you want them to be, but if you do the work, you can have a better country. GL says, why can't the Republican be president of the states that vote red and the Democrat the blue ones? Because we're the United States, and we exist on the principle that all these various places can work together to have one civil union that supports each other and works to the betterment of everybody in every one of those states. Somebody whose name I can't read says, nationalism is the best, but not at the level that you start hating on country culture. I don't know what you mean by country culture. Tom Masso Busini says, oh, okay, my bad. All right, sweet. Andiamo. I've been thinking about growing up and having all of my Italian relatives speaking Italian to me and, picking up certain words and phrases. All right, Yarno says, what's your ideology? Progressive Democrat. Lars says, do you like the concept of state competition? Can you be more specific, Lars? Are you talking about like on a capitalist level, like the state should be competing for businesses? Jay Vera says, what do you think of Pedro Sanchez? I don't know nearly enough about him. Somebody whose name I can't read says, like another country, culture, like food or song, etc. Yeah, I guess my question would be, if nationalism doesn't include hating or believing, if nationalism doesn't include you believing that your country is inherently better than every other country, then what is it? What's the difference between nationalism and patriotism? Because that's how I view that distinction. Is patriotism is I love my country and I want to do what I can to support it and my fellow citizens. Whereas nationalism is, I love my country above all other countries. All other countries can go die as far as I'm concerned. Correct me if I'm wrong. Average Joe, great to see you again, says, who would you rather have as president? Trump, but he legitimately pushes to end corruption in politics, or Mamdani, but he uses ICE on white immigrants? Probably Trump there, but, yeah. If Trump started doing good things, I wouldn't be mad. Simply Steve says, what do you think about how the DSA candidate in Colorado won last night? How she, a nobody barista from a small Colorado town, just seated one of the longest serving, most well-connected, well-funded members of Congress with a grassroots movement. So I think this is a very positive step, and I'm psyched as hell at every single progressive far-left candidate that is doing well in their primaries. Now, obviously, they got to win the general election, and because a lot of these seats that are being won happen to be in very blue districts and very blue cities and states, I think that redounds to their benefit. Like, they'll probably have a pretty easy run to victory. The thing that I always mention about that, though, is that the billionaire class is going to try to make those people look like failures. And so it is up to us to be informed about how well they're doing, but also, like, if we care about their agenda, then we have to help them achieve that agenda. Now, thankfully, Mamdani is fucking kicking ass in New York, so we have one excellent example of somebody who is a progressive Democrat actually getting shit done for the people. Additionally, you mentioned the fact that she was a nobody barista. Like, I think that the Democratic Party is probably leading the charge of replacing career politicians with regular ass people, and I think that is an extremely positive move. I feel like part of the reason why we're in the mess that we're in is because for so long, the only way that you could become a politician was to, be a lawyer or be a billionaire or a CEO or some shit like that, But yeah, let's get more fucking baristas and carpenters and garbage people and mail people and, fucking everything, man. But yeah, I'm psyched about this. I think it's so wonderful. I cannot wait for there to be elected Democrats who are further to the left than I am. That would make me very, very happy. Okay, let's see here. Rory says, do you support the Second Amendment? Not really, Rory. I guess I don't really see the value of it, considering that there's a lot of other countries that don't have it, and they seem to be doing better than us in a lot of ways. I understand that the majority of America has a real hard-on for the Second Amendment for some reason. So my compromise is, why don't we have some common sense gun control legislation? My issue, and this is the reason why I encourage people to replace Republican politicians with Democratic politicians, is because the Republican position on gun violence and gun deaths is, what are you going to do? That's just the price that we pay for being the freest, greatest country in the world. Whereas the Democratic position is, let's try something. Let's try to make it so that you don't have to worry that your kids are going to get shot at school or that you're going to get murdered when you go to the movie theater or some shit like that. All right, D. Marty says, Western imperial complicity, cause and effect. Don't know what that means. Vina Florel says, Second Amendment is needed in the U.S., though, because everyone already have a gun. That's kind of like a chicken or an egg thing, Vina Florel. I do not believe that is accurate. Okay, 1986 says, do you identify as Israeli? I don't see why I would. I was born and raised in America, never been to Israel, do not celebrate Judaism. I am not a practicing Jewish person. Certainly, it would be a real shock to me if that was the case. Vina Farrell says, so bad people will have easier access to guns. How is it that bad people will have easier access to guns if they are not legal, or if there's common sense gun control legislation, Vina? It's like you have made this leap in logic where I said we should have some gun control legislation, and in your view, that means that everyday citizens are going to have a harder time getting guns, but criminals are going to have an easier time getting guns. I think one of the ways that criminals get guns that's so easy is because anybody can get a gun. And so if you are one of those people who is so in the red for being able to get a gun, there are so many people that you can get a gun from because we have such lax gun control laws in so many parts of America. All right, Vina, I'm starting to suspect that you are not here in good faith. So, let's throw away all of the regular ass talking points about gun control, and let's just actually start talking about what kind of a country we want to live in. Do you want to live in a country where there's no mass shootings? Do you want to live in a country where our children are safe to go to school and don't have to worry about getting killed by mass shooters? Let me know. 1986 says, I thought you were a Jew because of your name. Very common there. I mean, my dad was Jewish, but also, if you're not Jewish, please do not say, don't use Jew as the word. You could say like a Jewish person, but I wouldn't be such a stickler about this, but anti-Semitism has been on the rise for the last 10 years, and so, or longer maybe. So I really want people to not use words that could be seen as racial slurs, you know? All right, Simply Steve added, not Quiros. She does not have a general GOP challenger. When she won last night, she passed go and goes straight to Congress. Oh, that's lovely. I don't know what you meant by not Quiros, but that's dope as hell. All right, Philosophy Major says, what's your political ideological orientation? I'm a progressive Democrat. The Wise Women's War Room says, I want to talk about the children and babies who are kept in ICE detention facilities. I want you to talk about that also. There are children and babies who are being kept in ICE detention facilities illegally, barbarically, inhumanely. There are people who cannot get necessary medication. They are being tortured. They're being held in substandard living conditions. It is a crime against humanity what ICE and CBP are doing to people, and that includes literal babies and children who are potentially, I'm pretty confident, but I don't want to stake my reputation on it, pretty confident they have been separated from their parents. Yeah, it's fucking disgusting, and every American should be pissed about this, because this is happening because we're paying for this. This is our tax dollars going to this. I would much rather somebody be wasting my money on food stamps, like somebody who doesn't really need a Coca-Cola or some shit. Like, please use my money on food stamps instead of torturing babies and children and just random ass brown people who may or may not be citizens. Okay, Period says, are you anti-Zionism? It depends on what you mean by Zionists. CRISPR Pigeon says, what are your thoughts on the Oklahoma State Trooper being nominated for ICE director? First time I'm hearing about it, CRISPR Pigeon. Yeah, I don't know anything about this Oklahoma State Trooper. As far as I knew, it was Tom Holman who was still in control of ICE, but maybe he got moved over from CBP to DHS. I forget exactly. But yeah, if you have thoughts about him, let me know. Ecuadorian, let me get to that in just a second. Let's see here. Liked 1717 says, remigration, what's your thoughts? Remigration is it's sort of like an anti-immigration policy that's based on racism, so I do not endorse. Vina Farrell says they should have just kept the border secure. That's not really it seems like you kind of dipped on our gun control discussion, Vina. So it almost seems like you're just here to shout right-wing talking points. You're in question jail, Vina. You either ask a question or you leave. James says, do you think free healthcare is good? Yes, but let's call it universal healthcare, because if you call it free healthcare, then other people will say, it's not free, we pay for it with our taxes, and then people think it's a gotcha, you know? So yeah. All right, Like says, remigration aims illegal immigrants only, though. I'm not going to parse the specifics of that, Liked. Remigration is part of the family of racist-based immigration policy, so I do not condone, I do not endorse. Vina Farrell says, yeah, it was really hard to formulate a good response with these few words. How was your day? It's been pretty good so far. I had a lovely morning with my 2-month-old daughter. Classic CJ says, thoughts on the protests in South Africa about illegal immigrants? I mean, I think that anybody who is aggressively anti-immigrant is misinformed, because immigrants are a net positive wherever they go. So it's a bummer when I hear that happens. It is a bummer when other countries believe the lies about immigrants, and then they start voting for right-wing politicians, or they start holding protests or losing their fucking minds and you know, rioting and shit like that. And I just encourage people not to do that. All right, Philosophy Major says, any political core values worth debating? I mean, I don't debate, Philosophy Major. Okay, Average Joe with the fact check on remigration. Per Wikipedia, remigration is a far-right concept referring to the ethnic cleansing via mass deportation of non-white minority populations, especially immigrants, and sometimes including native-born citizens, to their place of racial ancestry. So there you go. Whoever asked about remigration, it is exactly what I thought it was. Okay, BK365 says, what restrictions should there be on immigration? I don't mind there being some, but what we have right now, at least in America, is an impossibly long and expensive and complicated procedure by which a person becomes an American citizen. In addition, we have vested in the presidency an unbelievable amount of power regarding who is and isn't allowed to become a citizen. Now, that wouldn't normally be a problem, but in America, we have a psychotic, corrupt racist in the White House, which means that, and the Supreme Court has just basically vested in him even more power to revoke citizenship from people who are trying to come the right way. So, are we trying to bring people into the country who are going to be hardworking and a part of their community and just generally a net positive on the country? Or are we just going to close our doors to everybody? Because that's kind of what the Trump administration's policy is nobody who's brown is allowed in. All right, Badger Makes Music says, what's your view on true communism? Not like Soviets. I mean, I like workers own the means of production, but anything more extreme than that, you lose me. Simply Save says, do you think this could be the end of money talks era in elections at the state level? Definitely not. So long as billionaires exist and the Republican Party has been successful at eliminating campaign finance regulations, then the billionaire class is going to continue trying. They're going to use every lever of their incredible power to either elect Republicans or get people to not vote or hamstring elected Democrats so that they appear to be failures. During the Obama administration, when they were working on the Affordable Care Act, there was a massive billionaire-funded propaganda campaign to convince people that the Affordable Care Act was going to have death panels that decided whether or not your grandparents were going to be able to live or die. That was a lie. It was made up whole cloth, but guess what? It was extremely effective, and the Democratic majority in the House was gone by the next midterm elections. Just vaporized. And the supermajority they had in the Senate, also gone. I believe even sooner. I think they had like 8 months of the supermajority or something like that. So yeah, until there's no billionaires to do that shit, to do that chicanery, they are always going to be continuing to buy influence and buy power. Okay, James says, do you think racist social constructs, I think you probably meant exists, and I think that is true. I think they do exist. BKM says, what is the difference between left and right parties? That is a really big question, BKM. If you give me a specific issue, I can tell you generally what the left-wing and right-wing positions are in America, but they might be different in other countries. CRISPR Pigeon says, do you support a capital gains tax? Capital gains would be from like dividends and stocks and shit like that, like when you sell your stocks, if I remember correctly, right, CRISPR Pigeon? Yeah, I'm down for that. Okay, Badger Makes Music says, do you think revolution or reform is the way for change? I don't really see the difference between revolution and reform. I think that if you're doing the work, you are part of the revolution. Some people think that it has to be cars on fire for it to be a revolution. I don't think that is the case. I think that what I'm doing right now is revolution shit. Because if I was famous enough that the Trump administration knew who I was, then they would label me a fucking terrorist and try to send me to fucking CCOT in El Salvador. Lorenzo Bernaldo says, what do you think of libertarianism? So I would have an open mind towards libertarianism, but for two things. Number one, everywhere that they have tried it has failed. The economy of Argentina crashed. They needed a $20 billion bailout from us. There are cities and towns in America that have tried it, and those towns have largely gotten taken over by bears. But also, if you read the book Dark Money by Jane Mayer, regulars take a shot, you discover that the entire libertarian political movement was astroturfed by the billionaire class. Because the billionaire class wants to dismantle government so that they can be our de facto kings and queens. And the thing that is stopping them from hoarding all of their wealth and turning us all into serfs and hunting us all for sport is the fact that the government exists. And so their plan is to dismantle the government by any means necessary so they can have carte blanche and basically, fucking prima nocta all of our wives when we get married. Jay says, authoritarian government, I'm against it. Harry says, from an American's perspective, do you think the UK should rejoin the EU? Yes, Brexit was one of the worst decisions that the citizens of the UK ever made. It was part of a coordinated campaign by hostile nations and hostile individuals to convince European nations to not be united with each other. And so I don't really blame the voters for that. Like, this is, it was like a new virus, all this propaganda that was coming out of hostile areas at the time. So yeah, we elected Trump and a bunch of Republicans. Y'all voted to leave the EU. It was bad on both of our counts. Okay, let's see here. Red Future says, we need a communist revolution in the UK ASAP. I mean, what does that look like to you? Are you doing the work? Sahil says, do you think Trump will be impeached? 100% if Democrats take back the House. Will he be removed from office is a different question. It's possible, but unlikely based on how many seats the Democratic Party would need to win. And also the fact that the Republican Party is very against impeaching one of their own. Even if Donald Trump does the most wildly blatant impeachable offenses, which he has, they will still not impeach him. Like, it is a massive indictment of the Republican Party that they have not impeached him already. Like, it is psychotic. And there are a million reasons to never vote for a Republican politician, to devote your vote every single time to replacing Republicans with Democrats. That is one of the main ones, is they have proven that they give more shit about their party and their power than the American citizens and the rule of law. Because if they were really calling balls and strikes, they would have impeached him fucking 8 months ago. At the latest. Okay, let's see here. 198 says, wrong if you say offensive, then of course it is, but it's not the context I used it in. Nothing is preventing you from referring to someone as Jewish if you believe in the religion. Yeah, we don't need to, what do you call it? We don't need to throw stones, average Joe. He said Jew. I corrected him. He hasn't said Jew again, so we're good. Okay, CRISPR Pigeon says, what solutions are there to fix our electoral system, especially regarding electoral college? Excellent question, CRISPR Pigeon. So, first of all, the electoral college is very close to being done with. Let me repeat that to make sure everybody hears. The electoral college is almost gone. And for those of you that don't know how this is going on, because, it's in the Constitution, so it would need, the Constitution would need to be amended. There would need to be a constitutional convention, and we're not even close to that happening. There is another mechanism by which the states have been working to eliminate the Electoral College, and it's called the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. Basically, what it says is that every state that signs on to it agrees to give their electoral votes to the winner of the popular vote in the country. So California, New York, Alabama, whoever wins those individual states, doesn't matter. They will give their electoral votes to whoever wins the popular vote. And the reason why I say we're really close is because we have something like 264 electoral votes accounted for. We only need one more state, basically, depending on how many electoral votes they have. There's one more state. So, and I actually have a list of a couple of states. It's not a comprehensive list, but I have a list of a couple of states that if you live there and you are interested in getting rid of the Electoral College, you could call up your representatives. So yeah, we have 267 electoral votes right now, and this is just a handful of states that could sign on to the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact and essentially eliminate the Electoral College. If you live in Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, Georgia, North Carolina, Ohio, or New Hampshire, and you have not called your representatives and said, hey, I want to sign up for the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, do that shit right now. Do that shit right now. Because we are so close, guys. We are so fucking close. All right, Tag Your It says Arizona has 11 votes up for grabs. Hell yeah. Chris says Ossoff for the win. From your lips to God's ears. Sahil says, should we abolish ICE? I believe so, yes. I think the rot is too deep in ICE for reform. However, if we get control of the government and there are not enough votes for abolish, but there are votes for reform, I'll take reform. Just as it stands, ICE is not working. It is not a good organization. Lorenzo asks, best U.S. president in history? I've got no idea. I would say in my lifetime it was Obama. All right, Severage Enthusiast says, would you say that the council calm criticism on the Bolsheviks was justified? I have no idea. Okay. Sahil says, why would we abolish it? Would it not destroy immigration enforcement? No, we had immigration enforcement before ICE. ICE is a relatively new agency. I believe it was created in 2003, something like that. And we enforced immigration and border control before that. Yeah, I don't think we need it. I think CBP can do Customs and Border Patrol can do that job. All right, Kaka asks Newsom Shapiro ticket. Yeah, I'm fine with that. You know, Newsom's not at the top of my list. I would much prefer a Shapiro Newsom ticket than a Newsom Shapiro ticket, but yeah, I'm fine with both of those guys. All right, Leto says, what do you think of the theory of communism? I mean, I love workers owning the means of production. I'm not mad at that at all. Sahil says, who do you reckon leads the ticket for the GOP in 2028? My prediction is that if Trump is alive, it will be Trump, regardless of if it is illegal or not. I do not believe that it is his intention to leave office before he is dead. Now, that could change. You know, I have seen a different attitude in Trump. The older that he gets, it seems like he's too tired to try some things. So I think he might be satisfied with just like having one of his sycophants run the ticket, and then they can promise to pardon him for any crimes that he has committed. But yeah, I think that if he's alive, it'll probably be him. Okay, Dan Blackboard says JD Vance Gargamel ticket. That's very funny. Lorenzo Bernardo asks, biggest economy in the world right now? Oh, I've got no idea. Okay, Mikhail Meme says, what is up? I just got here. Is the chat debate right now? Right now, 198 and Average Joe are arguing about whether calling a Jew is a slur. And I think it is completely unnecessary because I don't think that 198 is going to call me a Jew anymore. Right? 198? I feel like this fight is unnecessary, guys. All right, CRISPR Pigeon says Trump running for a third term would just be the plot to Civil War. I don't know. Seems like a stretch to me. Daniel says, what do you think about Kurdistan? Don't know anything about it. Kaka says, JD Vance and Pete Hegseth. God, what a fucking nightmare ticket that would be. The Michael Lambert says, bare knuckle brawl, Graham versus Johnson. Who are you going with? Graham. I do not believe that a dude who has an app where him and his son can monitor each other's porn consumption is gonna do okay in fisticuffs. Alrighty, the Fixer Mike says, I was raised Jewish. My family is, but I stopped practicing. I am now an expert. I'm sure you are, the Fixer Mike. Shork says, do you think Civil War is logistically impossible now? I think I wouldn't say it's impossible. I would just say it's extremely, extremely unlikely. Yeah, I don't think that. I think the logistics of it make it more difficult, like the fact that it's not just North versus South anymore. But I just think it's so unlikely that will happen. I just don't think that Americans want to do that. Okay, Noah the Dragon says, what do you think about Trump? I have nothing nice to say about him. He is potentially the most corrupt and incompetent, worst president America has ever had. The corruption and incompetence is staggering. The lies, the self-serving, the fact that he has a crypto coin, the fact that he will attack anybody who does not S his D immediately, the fact that he gets into fights with the fucking Pope, the fact that he's empowered people like Stephen Miller and Pete Hegseth to do fucking war crimes and murder. Like, it's psychotic, man. Like, the dude is a crypto coin. He's selling political pardons. There is zero excuse for every single Republican politician to not be impeaching him right now. It is unbelievable. Unbelievable. All right, Sauce Boss says, is mass amnesty still possible? I don't think in the Trump administration, but it's possible in general. Okay, Luca Karam says, who is Democrats? So what I believe you're referring to is the way that Trump and some Republicans refer to Democrats as Democrats, but that is not their actual name. Kaka says, AOC Kamala versus Newsom in the Democratic primary. I mean, usually presidential candidates don't pick their VP during the primary. I think there's been one exception to that in recent memory. I think Ted Cruz tried to shake things up in 2016 by picking his VP before the primary was over. We all saw how well that worked. Kenny says, do you like Tucker Carlson? No, Tucker Carlson is a liar and a con artist. He is attempting to rebrand as an economic populist right now who believes in America first and not funding Israel. But he is a liar. You cannot trust the things that he says. If you lose your job at Fox News because you lied so hard that you cost them $1 billion, and you knew you were lying, it's not like you accidentally did it. Like, we have the evidence that he knew he was lying about Dominion voting machines. You cannot trust a single fucking thing that dude says. Luca says, who is Democrats going to run in 2028? So Democrats don't run. People, the voters decide who runs. There are a handful of exceptions to that, but generally speaking, it is the voters that pick. So I have no idea. Fliga says, what so you think is the best way to overcome the bourgeoisie in the corrupt modern world? So the shortest answer to this question, Fliga, is to replace every Republican politician with a Democratic politician. And it's not that the Democratic Party is perfect and they have a spotless history and they only do things that are anti the rich. But if you're looking for the easiest way to get this done, it is voting for Democrats over Republicans. The reason why that is not only does the Democratic Party have a history of pro-worker, pro-99% legislation and raising taxes on the wealthy, but the Republican Party has a history of the opposite. So you kind of want to do both things at the same time. You know, you want to send a message that we're not buying this shit anymore, and also putting in place the political party that is going to do something to try to rebalance the scales. But yeah, if you want to go further than that, like actual policy, you know, we have to do something about the infinite money glitch that the rich have, where they don't actually, you know, pay any taxes, adjusting the economic algorithm so that all of the profits from our record productivity don't just go to the owner class. Like, there has to be something. We have to give more to the workers, the ones that are actually doing the work to build the wealth. Like that has to be essential. Things like universal healthcare, universal basic income, free public college, like those things would also be really helpful as well. But yeah, we don't get any of that if there are Republicans in charge. Okay, Jet says, how do you feel about ICE? ICE is a rogue agency acting illegally, immorally, inhumanely. If there's a heaven, they ain't going. Luca Karam says, why are we taxing rich people so much? I have a friend in Miami and rent is tough. How do we fix it? So the reason why I say tax the rich is because they have the money to pay the taxes. Right now, the rich have too much and the poor have too little. Right now, everybody is struggling, except for the rich. So if somebody has $1 billion and they wake up tomorrow and they only have $900 million, I'm going to cry exactly 0 tears. Even though that means that their net worth is they just lost $100 million. They just lost $100 million. Oh my God, this feels like such a big number, right? That doesn't matter to that person. You know, they have 9 more of those things that they just lost. So yeah, I'm not worried about it at all. We have worse income inequality now than we had during the Gilded Age, which is an age that we named after how bad the income inequality was. Jet says, ICE isn't bad. If you truly believe, Jet, that ICE isn't bad, then you are misinformed. Muzz King and Mia, thank you so much for helping me reach my first gift goal of the day. Alex says, do you fuck with the war? No, I don't fuck with the war. Do you fuck with the war? Little Dicky fans, anybody? Tom Baker says, left or right? Left. All right, 19. Message too long. Ooh. The enemy of my enemy, right? Average Joe, Stream Elements coming to the rescue. Not that you need any help. Crispin Pigeon says, would it be fair to compare modern ICE to the Gestapo of the 1930s Germany? I think 100%, absolutely. Okay, Saucebot says, are you anti-military? I'm not anti-military. Alex says, didn't think you would get that reference, LMAO. What are you talking about? Brain got a poop, man. Luca Karam says, why does Trump change his mind so much? Because he has 0 principles, and he does not believe that the things that he says have any sort of like lasting power. So he can say one thing on Monday and then a different thing on Tuesday, and he thinks that nobody's going to give a shit because, you know, because largely he has the media in his pocket. So, you know, he's not really worried about any accountability. Connie, Muzzking, Mia, and Tag Your It. Thank you so much for helping me reach my second gift goal of the day. Michaela Meme says, thoughts on Dean Withers? I mean, I like anybody who is popular and getting young people interested in politics. I'm kind of against debate culture, but I still think that people like Dean Withers are a net positive. Ollie Simpson says, I agree there is a disparity in rich and poor, but just taking and taxing is not a sustainable option. I disagree with that. I think that that is a narrative that the rich created in order to make it seem like they only have so much money to give. The thing about a rich person is that having a lot of money, money is like a money attractor. You know, it's like it just you are able to accumulate so much more the more that you have. It's like a sliding scale, you know, of an exponentially sliding scale where when you make $1 million, it makes it easier to have $2 million, which makes it easier to have $4 million, which makes it easier to have $8 million, etc. So when we tax somebody who has $50 billion down to $900 million, it's not like they only have $900 million left for the rest of their lives. They will continue to accumulate money and wealth, and we will continue to tax that money. Alex says, real question politically, do you think we are past Republican and Democrat ideologies? 100%, I think that we are past Republican ideologies. I do not think we are past Democrat ideologies. And in fact, if anybody minds, I'm going to toot my own horn for a second. We are seeing in the Democratic Party the exact kind of organic growth that I have been saying is the way forward for the last like 5 or 6 years, where instead of creating a new political party to compete with Republicans and Democrats, we are changing the Democratic Party from the inside out. All of these far left candidates, these DSA, Mamdani, and Sanders backed candidates who are winning their primaries, they are changing the Democratic Party. They are pushing it further to the left in those economic and healthcare areas that America wants them to be. So yeah, no, the Democratic Party ideology, we are not past it, you know. But as far as like everything the Republican Party has done over the past 50 years, like we know that it's not working. The reason why nobody can afford a house or college or gas is so expensive and food is getting too expensive, and the reason why we have been in forever wars and have wasted so many dollars and bullets and human blood in the Middle East is because of Republican Party politics. All right, let's see here. Rihanna says, what do you think of Roe versus Wade? I think America was better when we had it. Alex says, don't you think both sides are guilty? So that's what we call the both sides narrative, Alex, where it is that neither side is good, all politicians are bad, etc. The problem with that narrative is it is inaccurate and it gives cover for the worst actors. So let's say that you got two people that you're thinking about going on a date with, and one of them is a murderer and the other one is not a murderer. And somebody goes, they're both the same. It makes it seem like there's no difference in who you pick, right? But there are real substantive differences in people's lives depending on who is in charge of the government, both on the state and the federal level. There are people who are alive today because of the Affordable Care Act, which is only possible because people voted en masse for Democrats. And there are women who are dead today or who have lost their fertility because of abortion bans that were only possible because people voted en masse for Republicans. So yeah, the Democratic Party is not completely innocent, but to say that they're both guilty is a little inequitable, I would say. It's a false equivalency. It's like saying that somebody who does a murder and somebody who jaywalks are the same because they both committed crimes. Well, one crime is way, way, way worse than the other. Would you not agree? What is up, Lauren? Great to see you again. Average Joe in 198. I do not endorse you guys arguing about this, but I can't stop you. So do what you got to do, I suppose. Okay, Alex says the United States should remove economic sanctions from Venezuela and return the legitimate president. You know, I got to say, I don't know if I back that. The removing of economic sanctions, I'm down with. What we have discovered is that these untargeted sanctions actually do more to hurt the citizens than the people in power, when who we should be targeting are the people in power, so that they change their ways and stop, marginalizing their own citizens. But returning Maduro, I don't think it was right that we got him. But now that we have him, I think it would be malpractice to return him. Okay. IK02 says politicians are statistically the best stock traders. Why is that? Because they have insider information. And I think it's really interesting that the Republican Party has full control of all three branches of government, and yet they have not passed the bipartisan legislation to stop insider trading in the government. They even wrote a carve-out for Donald Trump so that it wouldn't hurt his little feelings, and they still will not pass a ban on insider trading in the government. So everybody who wanted to make this about fucking Nancy Pelosi, well, every single fucking Republican who is in charge right now is also guilty of this. If you want this to be changed, you have to vote for Democrats. You have to vote against the Republican Party. Okay, let's see here. Mikhail Meme says, was Biden a centrist? He was. He definitely campaigned as a centrist, and there are definitely some things that he did as president that suggests he was a centrist, but his administration was progressive. It was pretty remarkable, actually. Like, as a progressive, he did so many things that I endorse, you know, like his FTC was breaking up monopolies. His NLRB was siding with unions for the first time in a generation. He walked a picket line, the first time a president has ever done that. He negotiated paid sick days for the rail workers union. The Inflation Reduction Act fixed the inflation that was caused by Donald Trump and the Republican Party. The Inflation Reduction Act was printing a nuclear power plant's worth of solar panels every day and revitalizing small towns. Like, there was a lot of really great progressive legislation that came out of the Biden administration. So yeah, it's interesting, you know? Okay, Luca Karam says, why did Trump not help Joe close the border in 2025? So I think what you're asking, Luca, is the Democrats and the Republicans during the Biden administration did work on an immigration bill that would have beefed up border security and tried to address some of the concerns of the mass migration that was happening. And Donald Trump told the Republican senators who wrote the fucking bill not to vote for the bill that they wrote so that he could run on immigration as an issue and win the election in 2024. Sorry. So yeah, Donald Trump and the Republican Party have zero credibility on this issue, even before you take into account the human rights violations of ICE and CPB. Alrighty. Mikhail Meme says, thoughts on Ronald Reagan? I am definitely not an expert, but I'm pretty confident that he is largely responsible for a lot of what we are suffering through today. Bad guy, bad president, do not endorse. Fletch Lives Again says, Republicans have all the control currently, but are afraid of voter fraud. Yeah, isn't that interesting? H. Ben says, what do you think about PACs? I personally feel like at this point it is straight up bribery. I 100% agree with that, H. Ben. And there is a difference between a PAC and a super PAC, though those distinctions are a little bit beyond me. A lot of this has to do with a bunch of Supreme Court rulings that have the Republican Party's fingerprints all over them. And this is another reason why I say we need to replace every Republican politician with a Democratic politician, because Democratic policies are about getting money out of politics, and Republican policies are about getting more money put into it. And some people might argue it, but the Democratic Party has more billionaires. If they did, then why would the Republican Party be trying to put more money into politics? Doesn't make any sense to me. All right, BKM says, why are there only two parties in the USA that actually get elected? So it's a big question, BKM. There have been other parties in America's history. There are certain anomalies with the electoral systems in America that make it really difficult for third parties to get a footing. The Electoral College, for example, the Senate map for another. But really, we could open the political process up to other parties if we had ranked choice voting. But the Republican Party is against ranked choice voting, and the Democratic Party is open to it. So the only way out is through. Again, vote for Democrats. Luca Karam says, why did Kamala and Joe give so much to Israel? So Kamala Harris was not in charge of Israeli policy during the Biden administration. So I don't really vibe with people putting the two of them together as though they both worked on that policy together. Joe Biden, I can't really give you a good reason why he did that. I think it was wrong of him to do that. He did push back on Netanyahu a little. Not enough, but he did a little. He put sanctions on illegal West Bank settlements. He stopped sending 2,000-pound bombs to Israel. And, you know, he should have done more. He should have done a lot more. Kamala Harris trying to be a good vice president while also trying to run for president in 107 days, which was an unbelievable, degree of difficulty that no human has ever done before. She did not have great answers for what she would do differently. You know, that's a very difficult position to be in, to not throw Joe Biden under the bus, but also to make it clear that you would not make the same mistakes. it was clear to me. I got the message from her campaign that she was going to be better than Joe Biden on this, but she could have been clearer, 100%. 198 says, what is the character limit for messages in the chat? I think it's 240, but I don't remember. Average Joe could probably tell you. He runs up against that limit all the time. Christopher Pigeon says, what reforms does the judicial branch need, especially in regards to the Supreme Court? We definitely need to unhack the Supreme Court. Like, the Supreme Court has been captured by the Republican Party. Like, and people talk about packing the court. No. We need to unpack the court. The Republican Party has packed the court. The court be packed. So we need to unpack it. We need to unpack it by either adding seats or impeaching justices or both. And I'm pretty confident that even, if Alito and Thomas retire this year, that there is still impeachable evidence for Barrett and for Kavanaugh and for Gorsuch. But yeah, adding seats is a absolute no-brainer. Like, it has to be done. You have to add seats to the Supreme Court, 100%. Some sort of enforceable ethics, I think, would be great. Like, right now, the Supreme Court is kind of like on the honor system, and that's the reason why Alito and Thomas are going on like $1 million vacations with their support billionaires, So yeah, there's just a handful of those. CRISPR asks, would you support term limits on justices? Oh yeah, 100%. Sahil says, have you heard of James Fishbeck? I have, but I do not remember. Arax says, stop sanctions in Russia. I can't recommend that because it's working. Alfie says, what do you think of the UK PM Keir Starmer's resignation? I think it was probably the move. He made a couple of big mistakes, though I think he generally was probably had his heart in the right place. Vidar says, who would you like to win the Swedish election? Don't know anything about it. 312MQ says, how do we make new rules and laws for the Supreme Courts? I believe that legislation can come out of Congress and then get signed by the president. Tom says, do you think Congo winning against England would have politically affected the nation? Probably not. And, we can all understand that sports is sports. Alex says, do you think boycotting Israeli companies is right? Yes, 100%. I mean, you can boycott anything that you like. Boycotting is free speech. And so even if you're boycotting a company that I think is good, you want to throw your Keurig out the window because they said something pro-immigrant or whatever, or you want to shoot up your Bud Lights because they had a trans person in their advertisements, like, that's your right. I don't think it's a smart thing to do, but you could do that if you want. Okay, Arxa says, why is it working? The Russian government is bad, but not the people. That's a hard one. It really is, because why is it okay to enforce sanctions on Russia that hurt the citizens, but not on Venezuela, which hurts the citizens? I don't know. My gut tells me that the citizens in Russia are doing better than the citizens in Venezuela, and that they need to be poked into action a little bit more. That Vladimir Putin needs to feel the economic pain of this war more in order to come to the bargaining table. Yeah, I don't know. Like, obviously, targeted sanctions would be best. If we could just go after Putin and all of his billionaire crony buddies and steal their yachts and all of their ill-gotten gains in foreign banks and give them to Ukraine, the people of Ukraine, so that they can, have nice lives instead, then yeah, I would be down for that. Okay, Benihime says, can you explain lustotropicalism? No, I cannot, because I don't know what it is. Coco Bellin says, what's your take on the DSA party? I'm totally fine with DSA. I have heard from people that work intimately with specific DSA chapters that they are very much not perfect, and I think that is okay. Let's see here. What else about DSA? But I think that an organization that generally pushes Democratic politicians to be further to the left is exactly what I think the Democratic Party needs. Tim Tam says, Triple T for president. Who's Triple T? Jack says, hasta siempre. Unless always? Is that what that means? Until always? I'm learning Spanish right now. Okay, let's see here. But Alfie says, "Do you think the USA needs a new political party?" No, we are changing the Democratic Party within. We do not need a new Democratic Party. Cflon, excellent to see you again. Russia is the prime example of the authoritarian that people speak of. That is accurate. Shork says sanctions on Russia maybe work because Russia has a militarized economy while Venezuela doesn't. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I'm down with that. With that as a rationalization. John Bradley says, "What do you think of Bill Maher?" I used to love Bill Maher, but he is getting old person internet disease where he believes things that are not accurate anymore. He has turned into the absolute worst kind of gullible centrist Democrat who is like half Republican now, basically. I do not. Did you read that op-ed that he put about like how he went to the White House and Trump was perfectly nice to him and he like didn't understand it? And then Larry David wrote the parody essay about being invited to Hitler's place for dinner and how nice Hitler was to him. I was like, that is a perfectly apt analogy. Like Bill Maher, if you want to be the guy who sees through all the bullshit, like why are you allowing yourself to get conned by the most obvious con artist on the planet? You know, yeah, the dude is bereft of good takes. He is starving for good takes. He is a bad take machine now. And if you go on that show and you do not take him to task, fucking shame on you, my guy. Lazy Mummy says, "Sorry, only 140 syllables are allowed." Ooga booga. I don't think it's 140. I think it's like 240 or something. But people were abusing the no character limits on Twitch and YouTube. So I had to do something. Okay. BK says, "What would you say is the biggest political change in the world right now?" Ooh, I don't know. The biggest political change in the world right now. I don't know. I mean, I still think it's probably social media. It's probably the way that people get their information. Okay, Cefalon says, "Old person internet disease." LOL. That. Okay, hold on a second. This person says, "Vote restore." No, Corby. In fact, I'm just gonna go ahead and block you now. Okay, John Bradley says, "Do you think JD or Rubio potentially more radical than Donald Trump?" That is a really good question. Potentially more radical. No, I don't think so. I think they want to be more radical. Like, I think the thing about Donald Trump that is so extreme is him thinking that he can do whatever he wants. So I think that given the keys to the kingdom, I don't think that Rubio or Vance would do or want to do as extreme things as Donald Trump would. But I believe they want those king-like powers also. And that is part of the reason why I think they are completely disqualified from being in executive office. John Scarp says, "Who's better, Keir Starmer or Trump?" Keir Starmer. Pretty much everybody is better than Trump. Cefalon says, "Wish more progressives would go on Mar. Don't know why they decided not to." I mean, a lot of people in the progressive space believe that you shouldn't engage because it quote unquote platforms people. I'm completely on the fence about that. Like, I'm not going to yell at somebody for going on Joe Rogan to try to get their message out. I'm not going to yell at somebody for going on Bill Maher for trying to get their message out. But yeah, who knows? Okay, Lazy Mummy says, "Do you identify yourself as American?" Yes. I mean, I've lived almost my entire life here in America, except for a couple of vacations and one semester abroad. I am an American. Lazy Mummy says, "Are you proud of USA government supporting Ukraine regime?" Yeah, Lazy Mummy, it kind of seems like you're suggesting that the Ukraine regime is somehow like Nazi affiliated, which I do not believe is accurate. And so I would encourage you to get your information from other sources. I am proud of the American government has in the past supported Ukraine trying to defend itself against Russian aggression. Cefalon says, "See the platform argument, but you got to get to people who may not otherwise hear you." I completely agree with that, Cefalon. Clean Fresh Edits, great to see you again. Says, will Republicans return to Reagan-style conservatism and ditch Maha plus election denial? Excellent question. So nobody knows. Political predictions are useless. But here is what I would guess is the key to Republican victory going forward. It's what Tucker Carlson is doing. So Tucker Carlson is doing the isolationists, no money for other countries, no foreign aid, but that includes Israel, trying to like ride that wave of anti-Israel sentiment that everybody's feeling right now. Plus fake populism, fake economic populism. So in 2016, Trump was saying this shit about how like the rich have too much and the poor have too little, and a lot of people got tricked by that. But I was like, he's lying, you know. And then in 2024, he did the same shit. He was like, affordability is a big problem. I'm gonna make it so that gas prices are down. Blah blah blah. I knew who was lying. Everybody fell for it though, so here we are. Now Tucker Carlson's gonna do the same thing. So yeah, I think isolationism, border security, anti-immigration, and fake economic populism, while still giving the keys to the billionaire class. Okay, let's see here. Chris Provision says, what do you think is the best path to resolution in the Russia-Ukraine conflict? I mean, it's just what we've been doing. It's just continued support for Ukraine and continue as many, to as much political and economic pain to Vladimir Putin and his cronies as humanly possible. All right, Lammy says, you didn't answer the question, though. Their most known brigade is the Luftwaffe with all the implications. Do you support that from drone units? I mean, I don't know if that's true, lazy mummy. So I can't really get into that because you're saying things that I think might not be accurate. I think that's fair. Okay, GGG says, what do you think of the Spain president? Don't know nearly enough about the Spain president. All right, we are at an hour, so I'm going to start wrapping things up. If you want to support the show financially, there are mechanisms to do that. You can send gifts on TikTok. You can send bits on Twitch. You can be a super fan on TikTok, and you can be a subscriber on Twitch. And if you have Amazon Prime, you can be a subscriber to my Twitch channel for free. Costs you $0, helps me out a ton, so I really appreciate that. You can also join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month, though there's a very fun incentive at $10 that happens every first of the month. And so the incentive is currently out for any of my $10 patrons who are currently listening and watching. Regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. We are taking Friday off because of the holiday this week. If you have any questions that I was not able to get to on this live stream, DMs are open. I want you guys to reach out to me. Use me as a resource. I want you to be more informed. I want you to be more involved in politics. So if there's anything I can do to help that happen, use me and abuse me. Use me until I am all used up. And there's 3 main ways to get in touch with me. You can send me a DM. DMs are open. You can email me through my website. Link is in the bio. Or you can join my Discord channel. Link is also in the bio. And the Discord is great. There's a great community there. And there's recommendations for books and podcasts. And also recommendations for civic actions that we should all be taking. Because the only way we get out of this is if we do the work. There are good people in the government, but they are outspent. They are outmatched. They do not have the political power that they need to actually stop what is happening. The only way that we stop this is if we do the work. So let's all do the work. And if you don't know what the work is, go to the Discord. If you still need help, hit me up. I want to help. I want to help you I do the help. I do the work, but I also want to help you to do the work. Part of my work is getting you to do the work. So help me help you do the work. All right. What else? Anything else that I'd like to get at before I wrap things up? What's in my notes? Okay. Schedule a picture. Get a touch. Discord. Do the work. All right. Yeah. Let's see if there's any final questions to get to. Lazy Mummy says, what are your opinions on the Ukraine conflict worth if you haven't heard anything about it despite Washington Post headlines? Oh, boy, Lazy Mummy. You are really barking up the wrong tree here. I know everything I need to know about the Ukraine conflict. Russia is trying to annex Ukraine for no fucking reason because Vladimir Putin is a psychopath who wants more land, who wants to reconstitute the USSR before he dies. So, ergo, we should support Ukraine, regardless of if they have a drone brigade that they are calling the Luftwaffe, which I believe is a reference to some Nazi shit. I don't care, and I don't even know if it's true. So there you go. Platinum, what is up? Good to see you again. Coco says, as is Netanyahu and Trump. I don't really know what you mean by that. Ososa says, what do you think about Italian politics? I believe that Meloni is too far to the right, if I remember correctly, but it's really not my area of expertise. Miles says, what's the matter with the Soviet Union? I mean, they broke up. and countries that wanted to leave left. And so I don't think they want to come back. If they wanted to come back, they would come back. Hannah Hanan 9809 says, "Do you support the actual government of the USA?" I mean, I guess it depends on what you mean by that. Like, I believe that government can be a tool of good, but the current government of America is psychotic. Like, the Republican Party is in control of all three houses, all three branches of America's government. They have completely hijacked the Supreme Court. They are in full control of it. The White House is under the purview of an incompetent, corrupt psychopath who has a whole bunch of racism and misogyny and anti-Semitism in his soul, and aims towards becoming a dictator. So yeah, like I certainly don't support that. Certainly don't support starting a war in Iran. Certainly don't support giving ICE 3 times their budget so they can do fucking human rights violations at fucking detention centers. Okay, Lazy Mummy says, and you don't know if it's true, you don't want to check if it's true either, so you are supporting pure Nazis just to make profits for USA arms and oil producers. So, Lazy Mummy, what you're doing is called a straw man argument, and I don't put up with that. So, the first step towards me not engaging with you is I just start ignoring your questions because I don't truck with that shit. But if you keep on doing stuff like that, then I'm going to block you. All right, Mario says, how do you see the future of Greece? That's over my head, so sorry about that. Arashi says, is America even a democracy at this point? Yes, Arashi, yes, it is. It is 100% still a democracy. Anybody who's like a doomer trying to tell you like it's game over, they are doing the work of the billionaire class. They want you to believe that it's game over, that futility, that resistance is futile. But no, Democrats are fucking wiping the floor with Republican candidates in every special election since Trump won in 2024. The Democratic Party is in a better position now than it has been in years because so many great progressive candidates have been fucking killing old corporate crony Democrats. Like democracy is still working. Now, it's under threat. Let's be fucking real about it. Like, Trump and the Republican Party are gonna try to do some shady, illegal shit to try to steal the elections in 26 and 28. So we have to be vigilant. We gotta do the work. But do not let anybody tell you that American democracy is over already. Arashi says, but are the Democrats any better? They are both right-wing. No, Arashi, that is inaccurate. The Democratic Party is a lot better than the Republican Party. And it's not even a close game. Like, if we're judging on a scale, the Democratic Party is basically flawless. Compared to the flaws of the Republican Party, the Democratic Party is basically perfect. Now, obviously, that's hyperbole. I'm being silly. But yeah, I can go into more detail on that on the next show. I don't have time to go into that right now, but it is accurate to say that the Democratic Party is way, 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 way better. But please come back tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel, and we can get into it more specifically. Or you can shoot me a DM. I'm happy to go into more details. That is like one of the arguments that I have fucking locked and loaded up here, All right, everybody, I'm going to get out of here. Thank you again for all your gifts, your likes, your shares, your supports, whatever method it has taken. Be good to each other. You don't have to be a dick to do the work. Oh, hold on a second. Lazy Mummy says Hunter Biden is flawless. Hunter Biden, never in government. Never an elected Democrat, Lazy Mummy. Congratulations, you are blocked. God damn. Do I hate fucking straw man arguments, man? Bothers the shit out of me. Okay, so don't be a dick, everybody. You can do the work without being a dick. Be good to yourselves. Self-care is part of the work, of course. And I will see y'all tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. Good.